Turn to 2 Timothy chapter 2. Second Timothy chapter 2. 2 Timothy chapter 2. 2 Timothy chapter 2. 2 Timothy chapter 2. Make it a little more clear. I said 2 Timothy chapter 2. Okay. I think we made a mistake by letting Tamara speak first. It's hard to beat a message that comes from a heart and life. But I have to do my job, so let's get to it. 2 Timothy chapter 2. Verse 1 and 2. It says, "You then, my son, be strong in the grace that is in Christ Jesus, and the things that you have heard me say in the presence of many witnesses, entrust to reliable men who will also be qualified to teach others. Endure hardship with us like a good soldier of Christ. No one serving as a soldier gets involved in civilian affairs. He wants to please his commanding officer. Similarly, if anyone competes as an athlete, he does not receive the victor's crown unless he competes according to the rules. The hard-working farmer should be the first to receive a share of the crops. Reflect on what I'm saying, for the Lord will give you insight into all this." That's a passage that you're going to study in the small groups, but I just want to get to one verse in 1 Timothy chapter 2, verse 2. It says, "And the things you heard me say in the presence of many witnesses, entrust them to reliable men who will also be qualified to teach others." Now, when you look at that verse, there's 4 relationships written in that one verse. Think about that, 4 relationships. It says, "And the things you heard me say in the presence of my many witnesses." So here, Paul is speaking to Timothy, and for Paul, he has received something from Jesus. In Acts chapter 9, we know that Jesus calls Paul. So in relationship between Jesus and Paul, he receives a calling. He receives the teachings of Jesus. So there's a relationship between Jesus and Paul. Now, another relationship that exists in this verse is Paul's relationship with Timothy. Okay? Paul's relationship with Timothy. And then he says, "The things you heard me say in the presence of many witnesses." So Paul says something to Timothy. Paul gave some message of words and life to Timothy. Okay? So Timothy has learned from Paul. So Jesus to Paul, Paul to Timothy. Now look at the verse. "And the things you heard me say in the presence of many witnesses, entrust them." So Timothy is to entrust this teaching and the message that Timothy has received from Paul. Entrust to reliable men. Notice that's a plural there. Men, M-E-N, men. So Timothy is to teach in his life, sometime in his life, to a few people, the teachings that he has received from Paul, to these few people, so that these few people will also be qualified to teach others. And it goes so on, and so on, and on, and on. So we see that number starts to increase from Jesus to Paul, Paul to Timothy, Timothy to few people, and then few people to more people, and more people. Each one of those people will teach at least 2 or 3, even 4 or 5, 10, 20 in their lives, in 20, 40 years of lives. Process of multiplication is shown in the verse, and of course, according to that logic, whole world can be evangelized, and whole world can receive the gospel of Jesus Christ if that process, ideally, is to continue. That kind of idea of multiplication is written all over the places in the scripture, from Genesis to Revelation. Okay, process of multiplication, and it's a process that Jesus Christ gives us so that we will be able to reach this world with the gospel of Jesus Christ. So many times we think that how in the world can world be reached with the gospel of Jesus Christ? I think through discipleship and through a multiplication of that. If one person makes a discipleship and that person makes 2 discipleship in his life, and those 2 disciples make 4 disciples, and on, the whole world can be reached. I'd like to talk about that a little bit. Okay? Let me give some illustrations, not only through the Bible, but also through the, things that happens in this world. For those science and engineer majors, this principle works in this universe. So those science, engineer majors, those logical mindsets, look at this. Atomic energy, whether in form of nuclear warheads or plants, producing valuable energy has greatly shaped the progress of civilization since the days of Hiroshima. We know that atom bomb has fallen to Hiroshima and Nagasaki in Japan, and they surrendered in World War II. And he says this: the principle underlying the mechanism of an atomic bomb is simple. I can tell who's a science major. Ones with thick glasses are looking at me like this. The principle, or thick contacts. The principle underlying the mechanism of atomic bomb is simple. Fast-moving neutrons are used to cause fissions to occur within the bomb. As the neutron strikes the nucleus of radioactive substance such as uranium, it caused it to split, forming 2 new different nuclei, and in so doing, to release 3 more neutrons. Each of these 3 neutrons now may strike 2 nucleus and repeat the process. As each nucleus splits, energy is released. A chain reaction occurs, and the energy released takes the form of an explosion. Power. That's where evangelism explosion comes in. That's where that kind of principle applies to discipleship and Christianity. We can reach this world. How many of you understood that illustration? Let me see hands. You are college students. Right? Let me give another illustration for same thing, same principle to maybe some of you teachers to be, or even full-time ministers to be. Okay? Process of teaching other people. Now let's say, for example, a gifted evangelist, comparison between an evangelist, gifted evangelist, and someone who disciples 1 person a year. Think about it. Let's say, for example, a gifted evangelist is able to lead 1,000 people to Christ. How many gifted evangelists can lead 1,000 people to Christ? Let's say Billy Graham or somebody like that. That may be very possible knowing him, right? Let's say example of a gifted evangelist able to lead 1,000 people to Christ every day. That's every day. 1,000. Each year he will have received 365,000 people. A phenomenal ministry indeed. Let's compare him with a disciple who leads not 1,000 people a day to Christ, but only 1 person a year. Think about that. Just 1 person a year. While somebody is evangelizing 1,000 people a day. At the end of 1 year, disciple has 1 convert. The evangelist, 365,000. But suppose the disciple has not only led his man to Christ, but has also discipled him. Spent time with him, had relationship with him, and he knows how to make another disciple. He has prayed with him, taught him how to feed himself with the Word of God, gotten him into fellowship with like-minded believers, taken him out on evangelism, and showed him how to present the gospel to other people. At the end of that first year, this new convert is able to lead another man to Christ and follow him up as he himself has been followed up. At the start of 1 year, meaning what he has done, that person can do the same thing to other people. Right? That's what it is. That's what discipleship is. At the start of the 2nd year, the disciple has doubled his ministry and 1 has become 2. Ta-da! Right? During the 2nd year, each man goes out to lead 1,000 people during the 2nd year, each man goes out and leads not 1,000 people per day, to Christ, but one person per year. At the end of second year, we have 4 people. Okay, at the end of 2 years. You can see how slow our process is, but note too that we do not have only converts, but disciples who are able to reproduce themselves. At this rate of doubling every year, the disciple leading one person per year to Christ will overtake the evangelist numerically somewhere in the 19th year. So after 19th year, this discipler has beaten an evangelist. From then on, the disciple and his multiplying ministry will be propagating faster than the combined ministry of dozens of gifted evangelists. Let me say it. Same thing, same principle for business majors. Business majors? All right. It's like a dad who offers his sons the choice of either taking $1 a week for 52 weeks or 1 cent the first week, and the amount doubled every week for 52 weeks. So dollar versus a cent, right? One son took the dollar. The other son said, well, Dad, I'll try the penny to see what will happen. What kid would do that? We all know who wins, right? The son who takes the 1 penny has it doubled each week. The degree to which he wins is absolutely astounding. I'm sorry about that. By the end of the year, the son who began with a penny will have enough money to pay the United States national debt and still have plenty left over for himself. Well, knowing the debt today, I don't know when this person has written this book, but probably maybe not now. But think about that process of multiplication, quality of relationship that counts. And I think that's what we're going to talk about today. Okay? I'm going to talk about some principles concerning discipleship. I think Christianity is a quality of relationship. Okay? Christianity is a quality of relationship in, I think, at least 3 aspects. Think about this. This is not the main point. I'm just talking about as an introduction. Christianity is a quality of relationship. Quality of relationship between you and God. Vertical relationship. It's in your prayer life. It's in knowing the scripture, knowing the word of God. Confidence in Him. Receiving things from Him. Receiving the joy and the peace and the strength to go on every day. It's about quality of relationship between you and God. Another aspect is a quality of relationship. Next to is, of course, a horizontal relationship. First, between God is a vertical relationship. Next to is a horizontal relationship. It's a quality of relationship between your Christians around you. Okay, Christians. I think that's friendship that exists between you and Christian should be in context of discipleship. Okay? Biblical friendship is discipleship. That's what I believe. Any kind of relationship that exists between you and your friend ought to be a discipling relationship. You influence one another so that each one of you can be more like Christ. I think another quality of relationship that Christian life is about is your relationship with non-Christians. Okay? Do you have that quality of relationship that Christ, that you so strongly believe and would live for and ultimately to die for? Will He be rubbed off to others in your quality relationship with non-Christians? Think about that. That pretty much summarizes our life, doesn't it? Quality of relationship that exists between you and God and Christians and non-Christians. And we live to have that kind of quality relationship in the Lord. So today we want to emphasize about that discipleship. Quality of relationship that should exist between you and another Christian friend. Okay? Now, I'm going to talk about 5 things discipling relationship involves. 5 things a discipleship relationship involves. Number 1, discipling relationship should involve love. Nothing very spectacular, but you have to understand something in depth. Okay? Some of you say, oh, I know that. But there are so many relationships that I know, including mine. There's so many relationships that I know, Because this is not established, there are so many relationships that goes wrong. Discipler is to love the disciple, and disciple has to love his discipler. As you spend time together, you have to have love, and that is the basis of everything. I know there are a lot of relationships, special relationship and friendship going on in this context. But if a disciple, if you are someone who's spending time with a younger brother or sister, and you want to influence them to be more like Christ, if two things definitely has to happen in terms of your love for them, is that you definitely has to love them. Okay? No matter how much you try to fake, within a discipling relationship, they'll know. If you don't care for them, they'll know that you don't care for them. If you do, they'll know. If you don't, they'll know. So they know you. Because I think discipleship is a relationship. Discipleship is not a program. Discipleship, you don't do it in a smaller group of context, smaller group of people within a context of that kind of relationship. Discipleship is a relationship, deep, loving, caring relationship. And we're going to define that a little bit more. But that love has to be the basis of everything. For some of you who are having a relationship with people, you have to reveal yourself in a way that that person has to know that you care for them. Okay? That is absolutely required. They have to know that you care for them. If you don't establish that, nothing will happen. I tell the Bible study leaders all the time, saying, if they don't know that you care, they're not going to care what you know. Right? If they don't know that you care, they're not going to care what you know. Same thing with non-Christian relationship as well as Christian relationship. Love is basis of everything. You do it in many ways. You do it by personal sacrifices. If you sacrifice yourself, time, energy, and effort, and all these things, they know you care. And also you have to have some personal concerns. There are many things you can do. Okay? You can be available to them. You can pray for them. So many times that happens within a context of relationship. When you pray for them and sincerely honor them in prayer, it transfers a lot of love. You can telephone them, spend time with them, spend time with one another, listening to one another in need, affirm one another, confront sins of one another, and give gifts to one another, asking God for wisdom and all these things. But the first thing that you have to understand is that within a discipleship relationship, okay, it has to be based on love. First thing I say to the people who is going out into ministry and said, what is the most important thing that I have to learn? I say this: when you go there for a whole year, at least whole year, you spend all your time, all your energy, all your prayer, all that you are, all that you have, to show them that you love them. If they know that you really love them, okay, it's going to work. Ministries will work. You have basis for everything. Everything and anything you do, they'll understand and they'll accept. Within a discipling relationship, okay? First thing that you have to understand is that it has to involve love. Second thing, discipling relationship involves total person. Okay, total person. What am I saying? Okay, by total person. Growth has to take place in total person. Physical area, social area, mental area, as well as spiritual area. Think about that. Physical, social, mental, spiritual aspect of one another. You need to be able to show yourself. If you're someone who's older, discipling somebody, you need to be able to show your physical area. Don't get any wrong idea about that. I'm not saying take bath together or something like that. But physical area, social area, mental area, and spiritual area. You have to be involved in whole of a person. What am I saying? When I say physical area, you have to, if you're discipling somebody, okay, you have to be concerned about their physical aspect. What am I saying? I remember one time, I was talking to this guy. I had a good relationship with him. And, he was one of the past officers. I'm not going to say give a name to this guy. And we were talking one day, Every time he comes close, and he's a good-looking guy and nice person too, and every time he comes to talk to me, I smell something. I go, I cannot show that to him. But the person was thinking about going into ministry. And how, one day maybe he wants to minister to somebody, right? But he offends somebody that does not want to spend time with them just because this person smells. I thought about it. Should I say something? And like many times that I have no problem talking about these things to people. But I thought about it. I said one day, so-and-so, I almost said the name there. Boy, I better not say the names. So-and-so, you're a good-looking guy. I have to say good things before I say the bad things. Because as we look into Paul's epistles, every time he's about to say something, he always says good things and then goes on. Even talking about the Revelation letters to the churches, he always says good things. You are faithful, you are suffering, all these things, and then says a bad thing. So not that I want to butter him up, but I want it to be biblical. So I said, so-and-so, you're a good-looking guy and everything, but can you use what do you call this? Deodorant or perfume or something like that? And the person was thinking about going to mission field, and that cuts down a lot of people now. Person was thinking about going to mission field and said, "Isn't that kind of luxury?" Well, it kind of is, but I think it's a necessity for you. I didn't know how else to say that. Sometimes, I thought about, isn't it kind of offensive? You may say, isn't it kind of offensive? But we built enough relationship. I mean, he knows I care. He knows I'm saying it out of care. And I said that, but I thought about it. I really debated, should I say this or not? But the thing is, who else will say that to him? Think about that, unless it's a discipling relationship. Who else will say that to him? Also, if somebody's mouth smells or something like that, in the physical area, if a girl, let's say it's a female relationship, and if girls wearing clothes that is kind of offensive to guys or something like that, and it would give temptations to guys, who else would tell them? Right? And that person genuinely may not know. Right? Genuinely may not know. Right? A lot of times, I don't think I smell after playing basketball. But guess who tells me that I smell? Every time I walk into the house, my wife goes, take shower. I don't smell when after my, who else is going to tell me about that? No one else will. So we need to be concerned about physical area. Not only that, but also, disciple relation, totality of a person, social area, right? Physical area, social area. If somebody's having a social relationship and that person may not know what kind of problem that person has. But you see in a relationship, and if that person is too extroverted or too introverted, there's not much balance. That person always have a problem with a guy, or that person always have a problem with a girl. It might be a girl that has problem with guy. It might be a guy that has problem with girls. It might be a girl that has problem with girls. It might be a guy that has problem with guys. It might be a guy who has problem with older people. It might be a younger person who's having trouble with younger people. All kinds of relationship contexts. Who else is going to tell them? I think you have a problem in this area. Every time, I know that some guys who are, every time he's around a girl, it becomes a different person. Seems like that guy is trying to please a girl. Has an intense problem with that and just can't be natural. And a lot of guys have a problem, same with girls. But who else is going to tell them about those kind of problems? Okay? I think, someone who has a discipling relationship should be able to tell those things. Physical area, social area, mental area. If that person's lacking in some kind of knowledge, or that person has a mental problem or something like that, any kind of mental area, academic area, a person has a limited knowledge of certain areas of life, you can suggest some books that you read to tell them and all these things, and I think you have a mental problem or something like that, and tell them about those things, being honest. That is important. Another is the spiritual area, of course. Within the discipling relationship, you have to be concerned about their devotional life, how they're doing devotionally. One of the best things a person who's discipling somebody can do is do a devotion together. You know, I'm so surprised how many people that I meet. And when I talk to people, talk to them about how do you do your devotional, how do you have your devotional life? How do you do quiet time? And when some of them tell me how, it's just unbelievable how many people don't know how to do quiet times. One day maybe we'll talk about that, but you know, maybe if you're a discipler who knows how to do quiet time, maybe best thing you can do is do quiet time together. Have good time, right? In doing it together. And I always tell Bible study leaders and co-leaders, maybe once a semester, do a devotion together with your member. And you can learn so much from that, right? That's one of the things you can do in your spiritual area. Totality of a person. In every aspect of your life and their lives, you need to be concerned about that. And you need to think about how can this person improve and be more like Christ. It involves totality of a person. Third thing about discipleship. Discipling relationship not only involves love, totality of a person, but time. Okay, time. Discipler must spend time with a disciple. Disciple has to spend time with a discipler. Right? When you spend time with somebody, long time, you are able to see that person in different situations. Okay, think about that. In different kinds of situations. When you spend a lot of time. That's why if you're discipling somebody, you don't just meet once a week and spend time together. That's not a discipleship. Okay? But normal times in your life through your hobby, and I'm not saying spending all the time, but spending a lot of time, even in leisure time at times. If you're going shopping, go shopping and talk about different things. If you're like talking, you know, talk to the person, and within the context of your friendship, invite them, right? If you like eating, eat together and talk. If you like basketball or something like that, you play basketball together within a context. Sometimes you don't want to play basketball with other people because you get so mad, and you know that doesn't seem like it's a good example, being a good example. But at times when they see you in different contexts, okay, they can learn a lot of things. In different kinds of situations, different situations in your life. That's why spending time together is very important. Right? You can learn from negative and positive example. And when you spend time together, unity will develop. Right? Think about that, unity. Not only is your body together in that moment, but heart together. There's somebody who you click with. It's because you spend time together with them. Right? And learning takes place through relationship. Learning doesn't just take place through teaching, but a relationship. I've been going to church ever since I was in elementary school, so during Sunday school, first grade. When I think about my elementary school years, Sunday school years, I remember what I remember most about Sunday school. Of course, I remember I think I went to a wonderful Sunday school in Korea when I came to America when I was 12. And when I was first grade, when I was 8 years old, I remember going to a Sunday school. And it's like 300 people in the Sunday school. It was a big Sunday school. I remember liking it very much. But I don't remember a thing that teacher nor preacher said. I just don't remember a thing. I just felt good. I remember songs that we sang. But I just don't remember a thing about them. But you know what I remember about Sunday school? What I remember is what I saw in my teachers. I remember those tears when my teachers prayed for us. And this person, I don't remember a thing why that person was crying, but the person was crying, praying for us, spitting and praying. I remember that spit. Right here, landed right here. I really didn't like it at that moment. But when I think about it now, I remember that's the kind of teacher I ought to be to others. I remember the kind words that those Sunday school teachers spoken to me with. I don't remember anybody speaking to me that kindly to me. But I remember just the teacher who's speaking with kindness to me as I was coming to America when I was sixth grade. I remember that teacher. He threw a party for me, and nobody threw a party for me before. But sixth grade, this teacher, because I was coming to America, threw a party for me. and having a cake, and told me to write the letter. I never wrote him back, but told me to write the letters and doing all these things. Nobody cared for me like that. But I just remember what he has done. And I learned a lot from the picture that I have about them. Nothing about what he said, but what he did for me. Learning takes place through relationship. In that kind of context, we see that open and honest and informal times, a lot of times you learn things. You know when's the best time to talk to young people, or best time to talk to people in general? When you drive. You want to talk to somebody, you want to talk to a teenage kid or something like that. When you drive, something about driving, something about looking into the window and getting bugs killed or something like that. Something about it that it opens your heart. And learning takes occur. And conversation takes place. Right? Within that kind of context, open and honest and informal times, a lot of times you make movie to their minds. Okay? And the learning takes occur. It shows, if you spend time with him, it shows that he's not a program but a friend. Okay? So time, love, totality of a person, time. Fourth thing that is involved in a discipling relationship is realistic view of one another. Realistic view of one another. Vulnerability. Okay? Realistic view of one another. A lot of times when somebody's discipling another person, wants to give a view that you never make mistake. Okay? We have temptation to do that. Just like even in the context of Christian to a non-Christian, a lot of times when we deal with non-Christians, we want to give that picture that we are holy Joes. Okay? But a lot of times that has counteractive, right, opposite reaction that we want to have. It does not. A lot of times when we are vulnerable and show our mistakes, a lot of times we gain respect by being honest to one another. Okay? It's not fake. We show to one another it's not fake. A lot of times we need to share our mistakes with non-Christians as well as Christians, with one another, being vulnerable. If that happens, freedom in living the Christian life can exist. Can you imagine how uncomfortable it'll be if people think you're a God or something like that, you're a holy person? And can you imagine somebody looking at you all the time, wow, and you're always afraid that you might make a mistake and lose respect. That's why, a lot of times we need to share our mistakes as well. We need to spend time in a way that they will see us. Okay? They will see one another. You'll see one another in context of difficulty, struggles, mistakes, in your tears, selfishness, anger. If you're honest to one another and show realistic view of one another, okay, then honesty, true honesty can result from that, and learning takes occur. A lot of times, one who's discipling somebody don't have a teachable attitude. Okay? Don't have a teachable attitude. And that's why honesty doesn't take place. A lot of times, when you're an older person to a younger person and you're discipling somebody, and you are not honest to that person, then that person will not be honest to you. And what happens is that if you're not teachable to that person, when you don't want to learn anything from a younger person, what happens is that honesty cannot result, right, through a relationship. I remember I repented a lot. I'm going to share a lot of failures, because some of you might be thinking, Pastor Min, he has a lot of success in his life. Well, I admit there are some successes. Yeah, I admit that some other people have became wonderful workers of Christ, whether in the marketplace or full-time ministry, and I thank the Lord for that. But remember, I'm just going to share some of the mistakes, because you can learn through mistakes as well. I remember this person I spent time with years ago, and had committed some kind of sin. I'm not going to tell you what kind of sin, and came to me and talked to me about it. So I said, you can ask for forgiveness, but I think what you really need to do is, you're praying to God for asking for forgiveness, but I don't think you feel like you're forgiven. I don't think you're accepting the forgiveness of God. So what I suggest you to do is fast for 3 days. It's not that God doesn't forgive you. God's going to forgive you. But it's that you are not accepting His forgiveness. What can happen if you do that is that next time you have temptation to commit that sin, it's going to be easier for you to commit sin unless you totally repent. So I told him to fast about 3 days. Kind of harsh. It's difficult for me to fast 3 days, but I told him fast 3 days. So this person, fasted, and I went away to other place to do ministry and to far away. And this person, I called this person, how are you doing? All things like that. It was about end of second day. I said, how are you doing? Is it okay? Oh, this person goes, oh, it's difficult to do it. And all these things, it's difficult to fast. Everything looks like food and all these things. And he's telling me all this. And I said, okay, that's good. Endure. Press on. Okay? I believe you can do it. And I gave him, I pumped him up, become a cheerleader. Come on, all these things. And I hung up, and we said, third day I called, and he said he didn't finish it, and the grace of God, but he finished it, and he ate, very soft food afterwards, and things like that. So it was done. But after a few months later, this person came to me and said this, and in tears, and starts to cry. I said, what's wrong? I think he's crying. He feels so guilty toward me. I said, what's wrong with you? This person, can you believe this person said this? I lied to you. What did you lie about? I said, after second day, you remember that 3-day fasting? After second day, I couldn't resist. And I just couldn't hold it anymore, so I ate and lied to you that I fasted 3 days. Guess what I did? You lied to me! Beat him up and things like that? No. I did not do that. Although I was hurt a little bit, because I wasn't hurt because he lied to me. I was hurt because he didn't, I didn't give him enough freedom to talk about his failure to me. Do you see what I mean? I think he felt like I didn't give him freedom to make mistake. To me, that means I did not show enough of my mistake to him. So I repented a lot. I thought about, I know I have a strong personality and things like that. I repented and prayed a lot. God, am I vulnerable to people? Or do I never talk about my mistakes? I think I try. What's wrong with me? I repented and prayed a lot. And said to that person, if you lied, never, ever, ever lie to me. I'll always listen to your mistakes. I make a lot of mistakes, but if you make another mistake, I'll kill you. If you lie to me one more time, I'll kill you. No, I did not say that. I said, I'm sorry. I really feel sorry that you could not feel comfortable with me enough to tell me the truth. I'm sorry. I apologize more than him. I really did. That person cried in front of me, said he's sorry. So, we became closer because we were actually honest. Talked about our mistakes to one another. Realistic view of one another is very, very, very important. And knowing that, if you're discipling somebody, if you're an older person, knowing that you want to learn from that person as well as to teach that person. It's not that you want to teach that person all the time. A lot of times you learn. We need to be able to willing to learn from anything and everything that happens in our lives. A lot of times I learn from, a lot of things that happens. A lot of times I learn from my kids, just looking at my kids, little kids running around, and I learn about how ready I am to God. Mutual teachability is very, very important as you have realistic view of one another. I remember another person, who played basketball a lot with me a few years ago. And I remember playing basketball, and most of the times I talk to him about things, and I think this area you need to correct. I think in this area, person would ask me, what is your view on this? What is your view on that? I remember talking to this person about a lot of things about life and all these things. But I remember one time when we played basketball together, I don't know what happened, but that day I guess I was too competitive. I was really competitive, and I guess I got upset a lot. And I guess I yelled at a couple people, you missed, you couldn't miss that, or something like that. I guess I did. I mean, I'm like that normally, so I don't know whether I did it too much or not. But this person came to me, much younger person, just years ago, came to me and basically yelled at me. And said, I said, wow. He goes, it was really difficult for that person to say, but because I care for you, I say it. I said, you get too competitive on a court. And you got upset at somebody too much today. I think a little too much. It wasn't that bad. I know you're trying, but it wasn't that bad. But you got upset at somebody a little bit too much today. I wanted to say, what about you? I really wanted to say that. Because he was upset too. It was coming out all out this much. But I swallowed it and I said, what do you think I should do? So I think you should I call that person and apologize? He goes, yeah. He was surprised I took it, I guess. So guess what I did? I called the person that I got upset. I mean, it was not like, you idiot or something like that. It was not like that. I got upset. I said, come on, you should make that or something like that. So I called the person and apologized. This person felt so bad, that an older person is calling him and, apologizing. Oh, it wasn't that bad. I didn't even feel bad. So I apologized. I tell you, we got a lot closer after that, after things like that happened. It is so important. I really pray that you guys don't think I'm a Super Joe or something like that. I really hope. I make a lot of mistakes. Hey. And it is really important that we are vulnerable to one another. It is really important when you're having relationship with the people, you give a realistic view of yourself to one another. That's very, very important, absolutely needed in the context of discipleship. Fifth thing that is involved, this discipling relationship involves, is counseling. Okay, counseling. There needs to be an open and honest atmosphere for this to happen. As I said in the first point, absolute prerequisite of this is that person knows that you're counseling, knows that you love him. Right? That love has to exist in order for that to concern. There needs to be absolutely honest and open atmosphere. You get that by showing personal concerns, revealing your weaknesses, okay? Making disciples realize that you're a friend, not a part-time tutor. By being credible, by being a good listener, showing a character, by accepting the disciple, right? Doing all these things, it builds an open and honest atmosphere so that you have a right to confront the wrongs and admonish. Okay? Confront the wrongs and admonish. Counseling has to take place. If somebody's doing wrong in their life, you need to be able to confront the wrongs and admonish. How can you do that? Right? By building a relationship, by having an open and honest atmosphere, and then you have a right to talk to them about the wrong so that person can be more like Christ. I remember a minister talking about this illustration, saying this person was in the hospital and his doctor friend was operating on him. And he remembers he's, looking at him and things like that, and he's joyfully, seems like, stabbed him, cut him open, took it out, cut some things off, and then patched him back again. And he felt really weird, going through the experience. But I remember him saying this, only reason I'm standing here is that my friend hurt me. Think about that. I asked this question, do you love your friend enough to hurt someone? Do you love someone enough to hurt someone? If somebody's going wrong, there has to be someone who's building enough relationship with that person to be able to hurt someone. I hurt that person if that person is doing bad. Differentiate between, when you are involved in their lives, differentiate between curiosity and personal concern. Okay? In the discipling relationship, differentiate between curiosity and personal concern. Sometimes you say, I care, and you ask, but it's actually you're saying it out of curiosity. Snoopervision, something like that. Emotional voyeur. Spiritual peeping Tom. You shouldn't be. Okay? Discipler is to counsel people. At times, counseling involves teaching, rebuking, encouraging, going along beside him. It involves relationship. Okay? So, what does that mean? There has to be, in a discipling relationship, you need love, totality of a person. It involves time, vulnerability, counseling, okay? And all these things. What does that mean? Let me give you application of that. Every one of us need in life 3 kinds of people. 3 kinds of individuals. First kind of people you need is Pauls. You need Pauls in your life. Okay, Paul. To Timothy, Paul was an older person. To Timothy, Paul was someone who has experience, someone who was wiser, someone who you can ask hard questions to and who can ask you hard questions, who can give you advice. To Timothy, Paul is an older, wiser person with life experience. I believe every one of us need them. And we need Pauls in life. Otherwise, if you have a secret, dark side of your life and you want to correct it, if nobody can ask you a question, tell you, you're not going to be able to correct it. Hey, if there's somebody who's older with experience, can give you advice, and that person can ask you those probing questions of your life, and you're honest to that person about your problem, and that person always is going to ask you, and when that accountability exists, tell you, you're going to grow. It's going to help you to grow. You need Pauls in your life. I remember when I was in college that one day I was sitting in my room and an older person came to me. Now we had built enough relationship. I think I abused the relationship many times because one time I was so lazy with my roommate that we didn't go to grocery for 1 month. And basically this person lived right beside us, and so we went there and ate all the time for 1 month. So I could pretty much say that person cared for me. But one day, that person got mad and yelled at us and told us to buy groceries, so we said, okay. But I know that person cares for me because he has gone through all those sacrifices for me. But I remember one day he built that basis to tell me these things. I remember he came to me and started talking to me. And some of you know that I was in an Alpha and Omega gospel band. And this was an older brother in the gospel band that I was in. I remember sitting down together. He created an atmosphere that was so comfortable. Knew how to do that. But I knew something was coming. When the person started to talk about good things about me, I knew something was coming because I wasn't good. But this person started to say something that really hurt me for 2 weeks. Really make me cry and make me sad and upset. For 2 weeks, the person said, I know you're good in music and you stand in front of people and sing and play guitar and all these things, but I really see that when you do things, you do it to be recognized by people. To a person who never heard what it means, I don't think anybody ever rebuked me, in a person, as a person. Somebody rebuked me in terms of doing something, but that's an offense to a person. I felt so hurt. I pretended I was okay. I smiled, something like that, and then we separated our ways. For 2 weeks, I didn't want to see him. For 2 weeks, I was so upset and sad because it seems like somebody rebuked me and offended my heart and a person. But you know what? Of all the things that happen in my life, what checks my motive in everything that I do is what he said to me that day when I was in college. After that, all the time I checked my motive. I thank that person so much for being honest enough to hurt me. There was an older person. We need those Pauls in our lives. Second kind of person you may need in your life is Barnabas. Paul and Barnabas. Barnabas was a kind of person who was always beside people. Okay? He was with Mark. He was with Paul. He always made them greater. He was always beside them. It's like every one of us needs soul brothers, soul sisters. Maybe same age, same interest, similar interest. And I suggest some of you who do not have older brothers to go to, or older sisters to go to, I suggest maybe you better build some accountability group. Okay? If you have no older person to go to, maybe good idea is a friend saying, can we check? Can you check? Always check me, I'm doing my devotional life, and I check you're doing your devotional life. Check one another in our spiritual lives. Maybe you can build an accountability group. That's a good idea if you don't have older person to go to. Hey, but you need Barnabas in your life. Someone who's going through the same struggle. Someone who's maybe at a similar spiritual level. Who's not impressed by you, but involved with you. You need Barnabas in your life. I remember also when I was in college, I think I had a lot of good people around me. As I was thinking about this lecture and message, I thought about my life, and I think there were a lot of people who God gave me to and had a wonderful relationship with. And a lot of those things that they said really affected my life. I remember I was living with my roommate, who's a youth pastor now, and another person who lived across me, who's a doctor now. And those two guys banged on me together. One day, came to me. And at that time, we had a wonderful relationship, and we fought together, argued together at times too. But those two guys came to me one day and sat me down. And I can tell you this, they didn't say, I think they cared for me, but they didn't do it too wisely. They were pretty blunt, and at least one of them had pretty mad eyes. I'm not sure if that person really cared. I know the other person did, at least. But anyway, two people came to me and basically said this. And that's the time I was a Bible study leader. That's the time I was a president of the group. I thought I was pretty okay. I think I was pretty arrogant. And these two guys came to me and said this. They basically said, you are pretty gifted in things. And when these guys say good things about me, I know something's coming. You are pretty gifted at things, but you know what? What you say and what you do don't match. Does that mean I do too many good things and I don't say enough things to people? Of course, it was the opposite. I say too many things. It seems like I keep so few. These two guys who were my close friends came to me and said that, and one of them didn't say out of love. I was so upset and mad about that. I remember because my sincere desire was that I really wanted to live for God. No doubt about that. Nobody can talk about that. I know I love God. I know I wanted to be like Christ. But I really didn't know that fact that I speak too much and I don't do enough things to show what I talk about. I did not know that. But when they said that, it pierced into my heart. It hurt me for a while. I had to pray. I had to cry for a while. But those words linger into my heart even today. That's why I remember I'm talking about it. It helped me so much in my life. No matter, I don't think I'm still doing, I think the principle stands. I don't think I'm doing enough. I think I preach too much and I don't think I'm living enough. I think the principle still applies. But I tell you this, I'm trying my best because of what they said. I thank them so much for the Barnabas in my life. My friends who loved me enough to hurt me. Also, if you can, it's not for everybody, but you need some Timothys in your life. Someone who's younger, one you can build your life into. Okay? But be careful, because you need to examine your life, you need to examine your heart, and make sure God is leading you to this relationship. Okay? If some younger people ask you to spend time with you, you can't say yes to everything, but if, as you pray about it, if God is allowing you, say yes to them and build your life into them. Relationship. That's what discipleship is about. It's a relationship. Okay? It's not a program. It's not a Bible study. It's a relationship. And in the context of relationship, as you spend and life with one another, you learn from each other and become more like Christ. I think that's one of the biggest weaknesses in our fellowship right now. Our relationship is too superficial. Do you understand what I mean? As I'm talking to people and reading the evaluations and all these things, you have a lot of friends within a church, but I think, that criticism is that there's too many cliques, meaning you just hang around with one another and not enough reaching out to non-Christians. No quality non-Christian friendship. That's something wrong, right? But let's not even talk about that now. Let's just talk about the friendship that exists between one another. What is the friendship that exists between one another right now? Is it a discipling relationship? Is it a Barnabas relationship? Is it a Paul relationship? Is it a Timothy relationship? Do you care for one another? Do you really care for one another? Do you really care enough to hurt one another? Do you care for enough to sacrifice yourself, to be hurt for one another? I believe that kind of depth of relationship has to occur. Whether it's a disciple relationship or just friendship. What are the things you always talk about with your friends? I'm so surprised when I went to a couple of the birthday parties. I was just so shocked what kind of things were going on. When I was a college student, all we did was just put him in the shower and cake in the nose or something. And some of you carry them all around the city. Put some of them into the tapes or something. It's just unbelievable. And that's all it is. You know what we used to do when I was a college student? Basically what we did was a little bit of shower, and things like that. Cake in the nose. And then afterwards, we always had worship. We always pray for one another. Saying, Lord, be with this person. Thank you for being with this person for 21 years. You are so gracious. And then you pray for one another. And there were some genuine tears in the birthday parties. Because we love one another. Talk about quality of relationship. Think about your friends. I say this. If your friendship, two things has to happen. If your friendship doesn't edify you, cut that off. Get into a relationship. If not, change your relationship. If you want to keep the relationship, change your relationship. To really talk about, be concerned about your future. Concerned about your spiritual lives. Be concerned about one another. Be concerned about one another's family. What can I pray for you? What do you want to be? Is your goal, do you have a goal in your life, or where are you going? You can talk about other things. You can talk about fun things. But if that's all you talk about, that's not a biblical friendship. I just don't see that in the Bible as Christians. Okay? Have some quality relationship. Don't waste time with one another. Let me give a note about how to find them. How to find those people. Lord, bring me somebody that I can be accountable to. Bring me that friend. Whether it's Paul, Barnabas, or Timothy. Bring me that friend. Second, number 2, put your antennas up and look for them. Okay? Put your antennas up. Keep on asking. Keep on seeking. Keep on knocking. Talk to somebody that you can build your life into. Say, would you like to do this? Don't be hurt when they say no, because there are so many people who are so busy. But there will be, as you pray, there will be somebody. I pray. Okay? There will be somebody. If you don't have any older person, find somebody who's same age and build some, not too many people in a group, but maybe 2, maybe 3, or something like that. Small group of people. Maybe you can do that within your Bible study. Okay? Maybe you can ask your Bible study leaders or co-leaders, or maybe your Bible study member. Okay? Maybe your friend, maybe same grade, I don't know. Put your antenna up. Keep asking, seeking, knocking. Okay? And try to have somebody who can ask you questions and who you can be accountable to. Let me say this. I remember listening in a message somewhere. And this professor researched 246 men who had downfall in moral tombs in past 2 years. We'll talk about ministers, 246 ministers down in their moral failures, moral tombs in past 2 years' time. Okay? And there was amazing correlation between these 246 people. First thing is, all of them were active in service. They were doing a lot of things, but they ceased in daily walk with God. That's the first common denominator among 246 who fell in their moral failures. Okay? They were so active in their ministry, but they ceased in their daily walk with God. No vertical relationship. Another common denominator, as you can imagine, is not single one of them. Not one of them had accountability group. Were involved in any kind of accountability. Meaning they were so up high in their lives, nobody can ask them questions. Nobody can ask them questions about their principles. Nobody can ask them their questions about what they say. It was as if what they were saying was what God was saying. Think about that. Is there somebody who can ask you about your life? And you have to answer them. If not, you're going to have a really difficult time. And you may be down. You may be going down in your, spiritual life. Not only in your spiritual life, but life that you're in failures. You're going to be in big trouble. I want to tell you about a student that I ministered to before that I have deep regret about. That's another one of my failures. I remember this girl who was in the youth group, and this girl was even an officer. And that was like my first year in ministry. And the person was an officer and was totally out of it in her spiritual life, but suddenly Lord started to work in her life, and she became dedicated Christian. And I remember her being excited. She was totally sitting in the back, and slowly she was coming up front, meaning genuine excitement. Her eyes were sparkling in her spiritual life. I remember, and when she became officer, I said, wonderful. But, after a year or 2 years and on, those sparkle in her eyes start to be gone. And especially when she was she was having real difficulty in her school. And she was taking SATs and, college entrance exams. And she didn't do too well, and she was just gone in her spiritual life. And, slowly but surely, sometimes she was absent in, the meetings and things like that. And I started to see, and What's going on? I remember one day I wanted to talk to her. After a long time, I should have talked to her earlier, but after a while I talked to her. I sat down in the office and I started to say, what's going on? And she gets so upset at me. Start to yell at me. Start to, what are you so involved in my life? You think I'm doing bad? I just said, what is going on? You think I'm doing, you're accusing me of doing bad in my spiritual life. What do you think you are? I was so shocked, I didn't know what to say. I was just concerned about her spiritual life. And she walked out to never come back. Last story I heard was this person came all in drunk to another youth group member's house and, breaking things and left the house. That's the last story I heard about her. And every time I think about her, I still pray for her. And I say to God, God, I wish I had spent more time with her. When I saw her going down in her spiritual life, my God, I'm sorry that I did not spend time with her. Let's pray.